robots took my podcast, man.
Who says vampires are no laughing matter? They certainly are. The fearless vampire killers, or, pardon me, but your teeth are in my neck. Jack McGarrett, Sharon Tate, Alfie Bass, Freddie Main, and Terry Downs. Two men on a vampire hunt. Simple? They certainly are.
Saturday night Polanski talk. All Polanski all the time.
Going back to the 60s here. All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to our podcast. The robots took my podcast. I am Jordan.
And I am Anthony.
Anthony, what movie are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about the 1967 film, The Fearless Vampire Killers, or... in brackets, pardon me, but your teeth are in my neck.
Yeah, what is it with...
this movie has many titles.
What is it with 60s movies like that? Like Dr. Strangelove or How I Love to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb? Like there's... What's up with this? What's up with these alternate titles, Anthony? I'm sorry.
I don't know. It was just the style of the time, Jordan. And this movie is very much a movie of its time.
Very much.
I mean, for those who don't know, Roman Polanski was a director.
Yes.
Who made, and actor and whatever, who made a number of films.
Well, I can I interject here? I'll help you with this actually a little bit. Roman Polanski directed this movie, and Sharon Tate was one of the stars of this movie. And for the baby boomer generation, yes, them, that Roman Polanski, that Sharon Tate, yes. And for Generation X and Y. For anyone below 25, yes, that Roman and Sharon Tate from Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood 2019. Yes. Anyway, I'm sorry, Anthony. Go ahead.
Because, they all rushed out to see that film.
Yeah.
But
for references, anyway.
You might need to speak up for the boomers a little bit, Jordan. Anyway, so, okay, Roman Polanski was sort of a controversial, not sort of, but a controversial director, not because of his films, but because of his private life. But he rose to fame on a movie called Rosemary's Baby. Good movie. Check it out.
Right. Came after this one.
Yeah, horror suspense film. This is the movie that sort of catapulted him into the spotlight. And I guess Robert Evans, who was a big producer,
Robert Evans.
Paramount. Robert Evans. He's like, I like this Polanski kid, you know. I like that Fearless Vampire Killers.
Yeah.
You know? So this movie was made in Europe, really in Britain, and I think it's maybe his fourth film.
Yeah. The exteriors were shot in Italy, I found out. Somewhere way up in the mountains where there was a lot of snow, at least.
Yeah.
But interiors, yes, in Borehamwood, England, I think at the MGM. MGM owns some studio property there still, I guess.
Yeah. So really sort of a joint British and American feature.
Yeah.
And really a parody of vampire movies. And
yes, very much so.
Yeah, a comedy. Jordan, I don't know if you realized that this was a comedy, but it's supposed to be.
I didn't a lot of through the movie, but anyway, maybe we should get into that later more. Yeah. But
well, I just want to tell everyone listening. So Jordan calls me up and he says, Anthony, I don't know if I could do this one. And he's like, I did, yeah. I watched 2/3 of it. I don't know. I may have to bail out. And
I did, yes.
And
yeah.
this
Go
movie,
ahead, tell the embarrassing story, Anthony. Yes.
No, I mean, am I wrong? I mean, that's kind of what happened.
That's true. What happened? Yeah, and I really was. I've never actually sat through all this. Of the Roman Polanski movies, I've gotten all the way through. I've gotten through Rosemary's Baby all the way through. I know that movie fairly well, how it ends and all that. Yes, very atmospheric. That movie is very slow paced. Chinatown.
Oh Lord,
Chinatown. I've gotten through twice at least, and that movie is very slow paced.
Yeah,
as well. The 1988 film Frantic, starring Harrison Ford, and 1988. Love that movie with Harrison Ford and
The
directed
Tenant's good. I love The Tenant.
by Roman Polanski. The Tenant, yeah, I haven't got through The Tenant yet. Actually, that's one
pretty
that
good.
Has been on my list forever. But yeah,
and The Pianist. What is The Pianist too slow for you, Jordan? Is that the idea?
I have not seen The Pianist at all yet. I know it won. I think it won a few awards. I heard.
Haven't gotten through it. So.
Yes, I heard, and I think some of the actors in there won some awards. Maybe yes.
Yeah, Adrian Brody, my fave. He says sarcastically.
I'm sorry, that's my worst Paul Lynde impression. Yes,
but anyways, so Jordan called me up and was like, I don't know, and I said, well, let's just see what happens. And this was a movie. When I was a kid, I used to read a lot of books about film and horror movies, and you'd always read about movies. And then you'd go seek them out. And this was one of those movies. Because this title, The Fearless Vampire Killers, like, that's got to be one of the best titles ever, right?
And I agree. I agree with you. Same here. Every movie, this was in every movie book I ever read. I think it was on TNT one year during Halloween season, as a part of their horror marathon amongst all the other Hammer films they were rerunning. But I never sat through it all the way through, and I had no idea how slow paced it was.
Well, I loved it as a kid.
Anyway.
Same as you, saw it on TV. I don't remember where I first saw it. I don't think I rented it. I think I saw it on cable somewhere late at night, and it really spoke to me. It's a very, in my opinion, a very interesting film, and it has a great cast. Roman Polanski is in it, Sharon Tate, and a lot of really great British actors. Ferdy Mayne.
The beautiful Sharon Tate. Boy, what you realize just, I wish she would have lived longer just to see what more she would have done as an actress.
Well,
no joke.
And for those who don't know the whole Roman Polanski, Sharon Tate connection, they weren't really dating on this movie, right? Because I think originally, I think his producer friend, Polanski worked with Martin Ransahoff, or however you say it.
Martin Ransahoff, yeah.
And then he saw Sharon Tate allegedly on the Beverly Hillbillies, which is a TV show back then. And then
in a guest starring role, I think, right? Something like that. And
Jill St. John was originally supposed to be in the role, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think that sounds right. Yeah, Jill St. John from a James Bond film, who would later do a James Bond film called Diamonds Are Forever. If I remember correctly.
She was in a bunch of movies back in the 60s. But anyway, that was the story.
This goes on.
And then what happens to these two, for those that don't know, Jordan?
Oh, to Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate?
Yeah.
Oh, well, sadly, we have the Charles Manson murder. And
well, they were married. I mean, they got married.
They were married. Yeah, they were already married. They had a baby on the way. She was 8 months pregnant. And Tex Watson and company bust in and killed them all, basically. Her and Jay Sebring and Wojtek Wachowski and Abigail Folger, I think. And just, And they're doing it like out of a protest kind of thing. And, anyway, very tragic. And this is what happens years after.
Or just a couple of years after the murder that rocked Hollywood.
Yeah. Literally 2 years after 1969, this movie comes out, and this is even after Rosemary's Baby when this happened.
Yeah, big hit there. He had a big hit with Rosemary's Baby, and they had a baby on the way, and nothing could seem to go wrong with Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate. They were both acting. They were both doing well.
The only way they could go was up. But we won't go into what happened to Roman Polanski later on, of course.
That was a tragedy. Roman Polanski is a complex character in my mind because I'm a firm believer that you should try to separate the art from the artist.
Yeah.
Because artists as people are often quite flawed.
Yeah.
And Roman Polanski is just about as flawed as you can get.
True.
On one hand, he has this great tragedy from his wife being publicly murdered and the press hounding him.
Yeah.
On the other hand, at the same time while that's happening, he
lost his father during the war,
Yeah.
where his father and he was separated from his family, from what I understand, and his father. It was something. He's had a lot of tragedy throughout his whole life. That's the other part of what's weird about the whole thing with Roman Polanski. And bizarre and tragic at the same time, about his whole life, I guess.
And he can't come back to the States. I mean, the man has had a lot of tragedy to deal with, but he can't come back to the States because, as everyone can Google, because he was charged and pled guilty to the fact that he had some improper relations with an underage girl. You can look that up. And so, I mean, we won't delve into that too much. But he is a complex character, to say the very least.
As a director, he is interesting. He's interesting. I mean, I will say I love the movie Frantic that he did. His movies sometimes have a dreamlike kind of logic to them as far as the plot goes. Yeah. Sometimes it is interesting to me. Frantic has that quality.
And this movie feels like a dream very much. Like, there is a dreamlike quality to it. Now that you mention it, yeah. Maybe a nightmare for some.
And that is what's fascinating. Chinatown is another story altogether. The making of it and the movie itself, that's a complex puzzle to talk about.
Yeah. And that movie also doesn't make sense like a dream. Like you woke up.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think Chinatown was praised in the past, and everybody loved it, and it won. Yeah, it was an Oscar winner and everything, and everybody loved it. But God, I'm sorry. When I look at it now, it's kind of like that's like another story altogether.
WTF this movie? I'm like, what's going on? Phone a friend.
Yeah, I'm like, what the fuck is going on
for this movie?
Yeah.
But this movie, Fearless Vampire Killers, I was reading
this movie,
an interview, Roger Ebert interview. And Polanski said he almost threw up when he saw the movie, because here's what happened with this film. There was a British cut, and then when it came over to the States, they cut MGM cut 20 minutes out of it, added an animated opening sequence, which is terrible. It's on YouTube. I'd never seen it before. It looks like some awful Saturday morning cartoon or cereal commercial cartoon from back then. It's stupid. And then they had a featurette in which some professor very unfunnily is trying to explain to the audience what vampires are, like we don't already know. They redubbed Jack McGowan or Gowron and Roman Polanski's dialogue, and then they retitled it from Dance of the Vampires to Fearless Vampire Killers, blah, 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 blah. And so Polanski was understandably quite upset about a lot of it.
I think the version we must have reviewed, or the one I saw, was not... Because I think I read also that the version that is now pretty much going around is the version that it was the original print that they found that was intact, that Polanski had wanted.
The only version I've ever seen. So I was unaware of, thankfully, of all that other stuff, or I might not have liked this movie and recommended it. So apologies in advance to Jordan, or apologies to Jordan. I think he's got some hot takes on this. But let's start into the movie. First off, there's a title sequence where the MGM lion turns into a cartoon vampire and some cartoon titles, stylistic.
Yeah, that was kind of neat. Yeah, I thought that was kind of neat.
I really love the cinematography in this movie. We begin on this snowy winter night. This is a very snowy movie, by the way.
I will say, yes. Can I say something? I will say something positive about the cinematography here. By Douglas Slocum, who co-shot Close Encounters with Spielberg, but Douglas Slocum shot Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and Raiders, all three of those Indiana Jones films, where it's almost like he signified the look on those movies. He was a British DP. He had the BSc certificate next to his name. Don't know what that means,
but sounds impressive.
The British Society of Cinematographers, and by the way, if you see ASC next to a cinematographer on a movie, that's what that stands for. It's a distinguished.
That gets you into a lot of parties.
It's like the Saturday Night Live equivalent of the Five Timers Club. No, I just made that part up, and I'm sorry.
But anyway, so the cinematography is great. It makes you feel cold.
It is great. I love the look of this movie. I love it in its widescreen, scopic 2:3:5 aspect ratio.
So
anyway,
we meet Professor Broncius, played by Jack McAlvin, an Irish actor in a lot of stuff. Really great.
Yeah, in a lot of bad makeup and bad wig.
I think that's part of the fun. But yeah, he plays this clumsy, obtuse professor. I think he's really over the top in the role. I think he's pretty funny.
Boy, is he
Quite
clumsy. Yes.
And
quite clumsy. He's quite wacky. Yes.
And Roman Polanski plays Alfred, his cowardly assistant.
His cowardly assistant, his little
really his servant.
Yeah.
Really,
yeah.
If you were somebody's disciple back then, like then you just pretty much had to do everything for them, and that's part of the humor in this movie. How
yes, Polanski's character is very obsequious to this man. This old man, anyway.
Big words over here flying around.
Look at the vocabulary on this guy.
So anyway, Professor Broncius is a disgraced professor who has crazy theories about bats and vampires. He's been kicked out of a bunch of universities in Central Europe.
He was also kicked out of another movie, I think, maybe like
he looks like he's been kicked out of another movie.
Possibly.
He was kicked out of a Peter Cushing and why am I blanking? A Hammer film.
A Hammer film is what you're saying. He's kicked out of a Hammer
an
film.
Amicus
and
film,
like,
even.
You know, the Harryhausen Schneer movie. An Amicus movie. Or and Man, First Men on the Moon.
So he's looking for vampires and basically there's a lot of cheesy humor. This is a comedy after all, Jordan. It's trying to be. It's trying to be. It's kind of cheesy 60s humor, but he's frozen on the sled in the snow, and they bring him into this inn, and about a third of this movie or half of this movie happens in this inn.
Thawed out in this weird way.
It's pretty interesting. Everybody the cast looks really authentic. This really looks like it's Central Europe, and these are townsfolk, you know? And we've seen this sort of thing in a lot of other movies, but there's an authenticity to the sets here. The production design is incredible. This looks real. This isn't clean. It's rough-hewn wood and claustrophobic spaces and real-looking objects.
I do love the atmosphere of this movie, I will say. Oh, my God. The production design is amazing. Even the matte paintings in the movie are amazing. All that. I will say the movie's definitely got some atmosphere.
That's one of the things I love about it. And then we meet the innkeeper, Joina, played by Alfie Bass, who is in a bunch of stuff.
Oh, yes.
British actor. He's really funny as this very Jewish innkeeper. That becomes a part of the plot, really.
Yeah. And also very perverse.
Yes. He's a little... Yes. And that's, knowing what we know about Polanski, both...
Yeah, who thought of this guy? I mean, he creeps into bedrooms later on, as we see.
He's a philandering bedroom creeper with a rather cranky, rotund wife. So there's some stereotypes going on here. Everyone deal with that in your own way. So then the professor, once they thaw him out, notices, there's garlic hanging up, and he asks if there's a castle in the district, and then the innkeeper, Joina, is like, there's no more a castle here than there's a windmill. Does anybody know of a windmill? No, there's no windmill. Okay. And then the simple guy in town, the guy who's, he's like, there's a castle down there. And then a bunch of people cover his mouth. And then the professor's like, this sounds like vampire country, because there's garlic in a castle. Mm-hmm. You're in Central Europe, Jordan. I mean, garlic in a castle, really? I know it's Transylvania, but come on, man.
No, actually, everywhere you stop in Europe, whether it be an inn in Austria or Switzerland, there's always garlic hanging from the ceiling.
There's castles everywhere.
They're just looking out for vampires. That's all.
Yeah, but there are. I do know that there's a lot of vampires in Santa Clara, and that's another place you can see garlic hanging up. But anyway,
Santa Clara, California.
So I've
heard
there's a lot of shirtless saxophones going on in Santa Clara as well. Saxophone playing. But anyways, the professor sees all these signs, and then we see Sharon Tate in the bath as she plays Sarah, the innkeeper's daughter. She spends
with a red wig on.
The very
still looking
beautiful, disarming. This is a cleavage movie, so just so you're aware, this is the '60s.
True. Don't be offended. And it's one of those movies in the '60s where they've got.
Just letting you know, don't come to us and say, Jordan Anthony, there's cleavage in this movie, and I was not prepared for that.
And she's in the bathtub, right? She's in
there's
like
some
a
bubbles.
bathtub, basically. And she's got the red wig on. Part of it's partly wet, so it doesn't make it look any better. But but still, even with this cheap red wig on, she's beautiful. Her eyes are just gleaming through it, just staring at you, the audience, just like and it does make you. I'm not joking now at this part when I say this, man. I wish I could have seen her more.
Jordan, do you need a moment? Honestly. Do we need to pause this podcast?
Yes, let's have a moment of prayer. Sorry.
What you don't see are her dirty ass feet, because Quentin Tarantino did not direct this film. Like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Anyway. So,
yes.
Yoina the innkeeper's upset that she's bathing in this, because that's one of the, that's their bathroom, Professor Alfred's room's bathroom. So,
yeah. It's a community bathroom. Yeah, community bathroom.
He grabs her. She's a full grown woman, but he grabs her, and then there's a weird scene where he's spanking her, and Professor Abronsius and Alfred are both peeking at this through a keyhole. So,
yeah, I thought that was kind of
Polanski-esque is what we call that.
Yeah, there's Polanski indulging a little, maybe.
So anyway, there's some interesting period stuff. Like Alfred they used to have these globes, these glass globes, where they would just like pull blood to your flesh, because you put a flame inside, and then it creates a vacuum and it sucks.
Yeah, I saw this first on a Ripley's Believe It or Not episode from the early 2000s, where they were talking about this technique being medicinal and everything. And then I see it in this movie and realize, it was going longer. It was going on longer than what I realized. But yeah, that was the bizarre part. And of course, it looks ugly.
No,
it's not pretty to see in this movie either, because it makes your flesh look raised up, and looking on this old, actor with flesh just, draping down his skinny ass bones, whatever. Yeah, it's a little gross. It's a little gross, and seeing Polanski do it, makes it even more gross.
It's unique. I think it's an old timey technique, and I think there's certain things that they did in this movie and certain props that they used to really give it an authentic feel. Like it feels like the time and place.
Does add to that. Yes, it does add to the authenticity. I will.
These don't feel like sets. They're all very believable. In my mind. They do look real. Then, of course, like we were talking about, there's a bunch of raunchy scenes where Yoina's sneaking into the barmaid's bedroom and tries to hit on her, and I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. And he keeps sneaking out of bed.
Yeah, or what it adds to the movie, other than
there are dated aspects to this movie, I'll admit. But it's a sort of a raunchy comedy, but it's a light raunch. There's not like a lot of actual nudity. Everything's very subtle. The humor in this movie is very dry and very subtle.
It's more like a proper English romp, I guess you could say, yes.
Yeah, and it is an English movie, so they couldn't show that back then in England. England had a very strict code. You think the States had the MPAA and, or what is it, did I say it right?
Oh, they had they didn't have the MPAA, but they had the British Certificate board, and they were ahead of us in America. They had the British certificate. The British had ratings all the way back to 1938, but it was pretty much simple and clear cut. It was either mature or young, kind of. You see a letter M on something if it was seriously mature.
They were very strict. You couldn't show blood. You couldn't show nudity, and everything had to be in just the driest innuendo, like this movie.
Yeah. Because in England, of course, they're getting movies from other parts of Europe, I imagine, as well. So they have to slap a ratings on their rating warning kind of thing. But all over the rest of Europe,
oh my God, no, France?
The rest of
Italy?
And over every other country, ratings were designated to just whatever their government allowed, basically. So
yeah, the English
that's
are very
another
conservative,
podcast.
which is one of the things. This is very, very much an English film, which is interesting to see Polanski navigate
True.
adult themes in this sort of restrictive environment. You know,
True, because compared to the rest of the European style, this is actually tame.
So
Absolutely. This is not pushing the envelope compared to every other movie.
oh no, if it came out in the States,
period.
I think it would have been raunchy. If it came out in France, oh my goodness,
Yeah. But it looks like this movie was financed by both American and, European money.
So anyway, so back to the film. So anyway, Alfred is in love with Sarah, the innkeeper's daughter, Sharon Tate, and love is happening here, everybody. And I believe it. And then in the morning, the professor sees a hunchback come in with a delivery. And he's like, oh, look at this, a hunchback.
Yeah. Now we know what kind
We
of
got
castle
garlic,
we're
we
in.
got a castle and a hunchback. Oh, I mean, we're building a case for some vampires here, So Arthur, for no reason, as the hunchback's leaving on his sled, jumps on the back. I don't understand that piece. I don't know if it's because Sarah's watching him. He's trying to impress her. I don't know. And then he sees the hunchback go over this hill, stop the sled, go over this hill, and chase after this dog. And he comes back with blood on his mouth. So something is going on. And so, again, back to the authenticity, you see stuff like one thing I noted was Yoina is like smashing, like in this big tub, cabbage with his feet, like to make sauerkraut or something. It's just like, I love stuff like that, those little details.
Right. He's not making grapes or
winter,
wine now.
You know what I mean? This movie feels cold. Like I had to put on a sweater watching it. It just feels, it's a chilly feeling movie.
I agree, because even though even the interiors that were shot on a soundstage look, like they're cold too, because you see snow everywhere. It's probably salt, I imagine, and styrofoam, of course. But
I wish I would have seen the breaths. If we saw the breaths, oh man, it would have been really awesome. But
too bad they did not have CG back in 1967. Yes, where they could add
they could have
Titanic
CG'd some
breaths.
jokes into this movie, says Jordan.
Yeah, that's my problem. So far we're this far in the movie, and honestly, this is where I was starting to doze off into the movie watching it. I don't know if it was my week, if it was the pacing of the movie. Yes, the movie looks great, it's atmospheric, but damn it, and it's not even that long of a movie. It's not like this movie is Gone with the Wind epic length, but already at this point I'm starting to fall asleep in the movie, and I'm starting to go, why does everybody think this movie is so great? And then I'm like, I'm nodding off. And at one point I fell asleep and had a dream that Roman Polanski directed a Hammer film that was scarier than this movie and had more blood and everything. And then Sharon Tate was like a vampire herself. And anyway, all these other possibilities I was imagining, I started to wonder after a while, like, look at later on what Polanski did with Rosemary's Baby and Chinatown, and then even Frantic and with Suspense and probably The Tenant even. And I just kind of wonder, why did he not go further with this movie? Why go parody on this movie? I guess he was trying to have fun. And even there was a quote from Douglas Slocum, the cinematographer who I mentioned earlier. And he said, I swear, Roman worked harder on this movie than any movie. And especially the Dance of the Vampire sequence, which we'll get to later on. But Roman Polanski apparently was a horror fan himself. So he really did take this seriously and definitely took all the gothic stuff seriously in this movie, and the gothic look, everything, down to the minuscule.
Every last detail. I think there's a lot of Polanski in this.
So a part of me felt guilty for not liking and falling asleep to this movie at the same time, honestly.
Well,
hell, Francis Ford Coppola named his first son after this director, from what I understand. Roman Coppola is named after.
It's just you,
Roman
then, Jordan.
Polanski.
It's just you. All this Roman Polanski hate is just. Well, I mean, not personal hate.
I don't.
Yeah.
I said, I like Francis.
Let's back up here. It's a European movie, like I said. Okay, it's a British film. We've got to. It's operating in a different space, a different pacing, that sort of thing. Okay, it's not an American film, and it's from the '60s, and it's a relatively unique film. It's a horror spoof. I mean, there were horror spoofs back then, but this is a really smart, dry horror spoof. And maybe that's just not your humor or what you wanted to see.
But at the same time, I'm conflicted, man, because it's like it looks great. I mean, I love the gothic quality of it. I love the gothic quality in the production design and the cinematography. And the fact that it
looks like a bigger film
canvas,
than it really is. These are kind of small sets and matte paintings, but it has a feel. It has I don't know. There's a claustrophobia in the inn that I like, and then when you get outside, it's like a breath of fresh air because you can breathe a little bit, and then you see these big snowy scapes. It's a beautiful looking film in my mind.
Absolutely, I agree. And I mean, you feel like every time you're there out in the cold, you are out in the cold most of the time. You know.
Anyway, let's talk more about what we think about this film at the end. We have a little bit of plot to get through here. So Sarah is an educated woman. They sent her off to school, and she's really fallen in love with baths. So she loves to bathe herself, and anytime this movie can get her into a bathtub and just barely cover her with bubbles, it does.
Yeah.
And then, that's for sure. So she has the scene, like I said, this is a comedy. This is the type of humor. So she comes in, she's talking to Alfred, sneaking into the bath because the other door has been barricaded. And so she's like, I think, once a day is, don't you agree? And then let's have a quick one, and all this innuendo. And Alfred thinks that she's talking about sex and it's,
yeah, that was a little weird too.
She's talking about a bath. I know I didn't describe that well enough.
She's talking about another bath.
This is a movie that you have to watch because I cannot just explain this. You have to see it.
Yeah. Double entendre, I guess they say.
Double entendre, triple entendres. You know what I mean? All sorts of entendres happening here. And then we see, as she's in the bath, the vampire come through the skylight, Jordan. And then what happens?
He kind of like pulls her up out of the tub through the skylight, biting her neck at the same time, kind of in this rough kind of sort of best way they can pull it off kind of in this movie kind of thing.
Yeah. And then Alfred and the professor come in, and then, he's like, oh, we have, they have their proof here.
After she's gone, and of course he falls in the tub. Yeah, as there's snow still falling through the sky.
And I like that the snow trickles down on her, and she looks up, and then the vampire comes out. There's some fun stuff happening here. Anyway, so then Yoina, the innkeeper's like, he crawls to the skylight, and he's like, "Your Excellency, bring back my daughter," And then he, in the next scene, eats some garlic, and he leaves. He's going to go get his daughter, and the next day they find him frozen outside, comically. And then the professor pulls up his sleeve, and he sees some bite marks. And then he says, Yoina's dead. He goes to the innkeeper's wife. He's like, your husband's dead. We can save his soul, though. To keep him from becoming a vampire, we're going to have to stake him through the heart. And she is not all about that. Or staking his corpse, And I thought that was funny. Basically, there's a lot of hijinks at this inn. Throughout this whole part of the movie, and I think that's probably where you have problems with it. It's just we spend a lot of time at the end and all these like non sequitur scenes and these jokes that it spends a lot of time trying to make. Is that right, Jordan?
Just a lot.
Too many jokes.
Man, it's just God. It's so much, and I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't think Polanski knows comedy.
Ooh.
Oh, I said it. Ooh. I don't know. I don't get. I don't get me wrong. I don't think he was trying to write a joke per minute kind of movie. This is more of a satire kind of movie, I guess. But at the same time, I'm just like, man, I could see how it might feel fresh. And you know what? I'm probably maybe I'm just being stupid here. I don't know. I mean, I looked it up. Rotten Tomatoes has this movie at a 70 to 88%, I think. Like 70% in one category, 88% in another category.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. I mean, that's a high rating even for that's surprising even for as old as this movie is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's a real movie, Jordan.
Yeah, I mean,
Jordan's like,
I get it.
But I mean, it doesn't land for you. Like I was when Jordan and I were talking,
Yeah.
I was like, "There's a movie Hail Caesar, right? That's made by the Coen brothers." I saw it not too long ago, late to the party, and I'm glad I was late to the party because I did not like that movie. I did not think it was funny. I love the Coen brothers. I was like, "What is wrong? Is it me or is it this movie?" And again, like you said, Jordan, everybody. Or not everybody, but there's a lot of positivity and positive ratings about this movie. And you're just left with, did I not get it? Did I miss the bus here? What,
Yeah. Apparently people were like this back in 1997, apparently, when The English Patient came out, where some people were just like, everybody loves this movie. Is it just hyped this way? Am I supposed to love it?
Yeah, I saw that movie on the plane, but yeah, I'm in the hype column. Yeah, I don't get that one either. But anyways, back to this movie. So we have a bunch of hijinks, and then basically Yoina, the vampire Yoina, is running around, and then he goes into the room with the barmaid that he was trying to hook up with, and the famous scene from this movie, she shows him across, and he's like, "Boy, do you have the wrong vampire." Boom.
Yeah. Yeah, we should have just
And so anyway, this is when the movie starts to pick up. Professor and Alfred ski to the castle. They follow Yoina or whatever. And then they meet.
Oh, yeah. On these kind of half-ass skis, I guess, where they don't have they just have a kind of staff kind of thing or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's like the early 1800s. It's 19th century. Sometime like that. I don't know. So everything's kind of rustic and old. And they break and enter into this castle, and they meet Count von Kroloch. And what is he like, Jordan?
He just looks like some John Carradine type. I don't know. He just, he's a crusty old vampire.
Jordan is not impressed by the crusty old vampire.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, don't apologize. But this particular actor is a fairly famous actor, Ferdy Mayne. He was in a bunch of stuff. I believe he was also the narrator.
Pronounced Maine, yes. Maine, like, yes. Red Maine, that other actor from nowadays. Yes.
And he was in Where Eagles Dare. He was with Clint Eastwood. Right. He was in a song, or a movie I know from a song. A movie I watched because of a song by the Misfits, randomly. And then...
That sounds like a song, Anthony.
The Vampire Lovers. He was in that.
Oh, he was in that one too. Another vampire movie, yeah. A Hammer film too. That looks like this movie almost. Like.
Yeah, he was. Anyway, he was in one of the Pink Panther movies. I think Return of the Pink Panther with Alfie Bass. So they were reunited there. He played Dracula again in a German film. He was in Barry Lyndon, Jordan, and he was in Howling 2. Your Sister is a Werewolf, a movie.
Wow.
We briefly mentioned last episode.
We referenced in another podcast that might be coming up on Halloween, hopefully.
It should be. It will be. So anyway, I think he's a pretty good actor. He's your stereotypical Count, but he's having fun in the role, and I believe him. It turns out he's a big fan of the professor's work on bats, and so he's like, oh. So he's like, yeah, welcome. This is, an unexpected surprise. And so they were like, oh, yeah, we are following this bat, and it led us to your castle. And they have a discussion there about that. And then we meet.
I was still sleeping on this part. I'm sorry. But it was like the best 15-minute sleep I had all week long, honestly. I don't remember what I was dreaming about. But anyway, and then I woke up again and.
Jordan was dreaming about a better film, or maybe Sharon Tate in the bathtub.
I'm sorry. I mean, just why couldn't I'm going to complain a little here. Why couldn't Polanski's auteuring, screaming little genius ass have made this a horror film, a flat out horror film with more blood and just gone for the Hammer thing. He clearly wanted to make that movie. It's almost like this is Polanski's little horror fan film. That's what this is. See, my kid's in the background and she agrees. I'm sorry. I mean, it honestly looks like Hammer tried to do a comedy and then like Polanski doesn't know comedy, clearly, but he does know suspense no matter what, as a director, as a human, whatever.
Well, Jordan, I think this movie's funny. I think it's for a certain sophisticated European palate. Maybe Americans don't appreciate this film and its humor.
I'm not. There are a lot of art films I love from that time period. I mean, hell, I love Last Year at Marion Bad. I love A Man and a Woman. Even. Ooh, I'm digging deep on references here. Now you got them. You got me to draw out these European references.
Is that a movie, or was that last weekend, Jordan? What are you talking about? Anyway, sorry.
Well, well, now that you bring it up.
That's my dad joke of the podcast. Anyway.
Ooh,
so one of the reasons I like this film is because of this next scene where we meet the Count's son, Herbert. And what is Herbert like?
He's very blonde, he looks like he's from San Fernando Valley, as Bill Murray might say in Ghostbusters 2.
Bill Murray too soon.
He's very...
I'm kidding.
Yeah, I shouldn't have brought a Bill Murray joke into this right now. I'm sorry.
Anyway.
Ouch. Anyway. But no, he's very blonde. He's very crop wearing. He's very
and he's very
vampire.
And he's very
what are you trying to get me to say, Anthony?
I think he's very fey. I think he fancies the lads, Jordan.
Oh yes. He kind of likes He likes the lads, yeah.
He fancies Alfred.
He likes people like Roman Polanski. He likes little guys like Roman Polanski, I guess.
Likes little twinks like Roman Polanski.
Little guys, yeah. Little like 5'2", 5-foot guys like Roman Polanski. He favors them, yes.
Yeah, but because this is the Brit in the 60s, it's all very subtle, you know what I mean? Or not really that subtle. They're hitting you over the head with it, but it's
I guess
stated.
Would Roman Polanski be twink for that period of time, I guess, maybe. Little
I don't
skinny
know.
All that. Little skinny lad, I don't know.
I'm not the best to ask about that. Join us on our new podcast, Twink or Not, where we have a panel of experts who inform Jordan and I on things that are way out of our
We'll have our twink
sphere.
experts. That's right. A panel of 4 young lads below the age of 25.
So the Count's son is gay, everybody, and it's the 60s. So I kind of think that's a bit something progressive. I don't know, something.
Yeah, and they don't make a big thing out of it in this movie.
No. They don't judge him. They're not making fun of him.
They don't judge him, Yeah. They don't judge him for being a vampire.
Yeah.
And maybe
There's more judgment on him being a vampire probably than who he fancies. Anyway.
Yes.
So all the vampires sleep in coffins, right? They're exploiting every vampire cliche. They retire for the evening. And so Alfred hears some singing and he goes out and he thinks it's Sarah. Then the professor and Alfred climb up the castle roof and sneak in.
It's kind of hairy looking. Yeah, I remember this part was kind of hairy a little bit, I will say.
And it's a bit scary. I'm afraid of heights. It looks real.
A little bit of suspense there they created.
And then they climb up on the castle roof and they're trying to sneak into the crypt, right? But then, so Alfred goes in where the vampires are sleeping to stake them. And then the professor gets stuck in the window. And then cowardly Alfred has to try to, to try to stake the vampires. But he just can't do it. He's got the stake. He's got the hammer. He's right there above the Count, but he just can't do it.
Yeah, he wusses out the whole thing. He can't. He's like, I can't do it, and he starts to shake. And I mean, it's kind of ridiculous in a way. I don't know, but I don't know. I guess there's a little suspense. Yeah.
Do you remember?
I'm sorry.
You know how I always say, had X not happened, then Y would not happen in a movie. Had Alfred
the first time I had to kill a vampire, I didn't do that, Anthony. I'm just saying, I didn't freak out like that when I had to kill a vampire.
Oh yeah, really?
Anyway.
What was that like? You were just cool. You're like, no worries, guys. Hand me that steak.
I just did it, man. I took a shot of liquor ahead of time, okay, and I swallowed some garlic, and I did it, Anthony. I did it. I wasn't a little bitch about it because I'm a tough bitch. I'm a tough bench, Anthony.
And you are a tough bitch. And I bet a bunch of friends dared you to stake that vampire. Like,
They did.
You're not cool unless you stake
did.
that vampire over there, JoJo. That's what they used
We
to call
snuck into this vampire's crypt, and they dared me to do it. Okay, you got me.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's another story. Anyway,
yeah, breaking into vampire. Young Jordan drinking, smoking, and breaking into vampire crypts.
when I was a vampire hunter when I was younger, yes, that's what we did for laughs.
Just to impress your friends. Cool. Yeah, I staked some vampires too. My mom moved us into this small California town, and I started hanging out with these weirdos in the comic book shop, and town was overrun with vampires. You know what I mean?
Wait, the Frog Brothers? This is Lost Boys, Anthony, right?
Well, maybe I fell asleep during this movie too and was dreaming. I don't. I did not fall asleep in the middle of this movie because it's a good movie, Jordan, and I like this movie. So, what did this movie do to you? Leave it alone, Jordan. God.
I don't.
Quit
it's not like it's a grudge.
movie.
I don't know. It felt like a grudge for a little bit, though. I will be honest. Yeah.
Anyways,
Felt like this movie just picked on me. It picked on my sensibilities. I don't know.
So anyway, Alfred can't do it because he can't stake the vampire. I'm just saying, everybody, the rest of this movie has to happen.
Yeah.
Had he staked the count, the rest of this movie wouldn't happen. They could go home. He'd be with Sarah. They do the blood transfusion on her, keep her from becoming a full vampire. Everything would be cool. But Alfred, not the professor, not anybody else. Alfred is the responsible for the rest of this movie, in my opinion.
Yes.
Right? And so he goes out to pull the professor out again. And then he finds Sarah in the bath, because where is Sarah always, Jordan?
Always in the bath, man.
Always in the bath.
She's
man.
always wanting to take a bath in this movie. And that's where you always find Sharon Tate's character in this movie is in the bathtub. And what was it? Is that where Roman Polanski just wanted to?
No one will ever call her a dirty bitch.
Yeah. And the weird thing is too, I don't know. You said this early on. Roman Polanski and her were not really an item yet. They started dating on this movie. They were not already married on this movie, but they started dating on this movie. And Sharon Tate apparently later said when they started dating on this movie, she was shocked because Roman Polanski was just such a dick kind of sometimes as a director, apparently, to her, that she was shocked that later on he asked her out even on a date. And then they later ended up getting married even after that, shockingly somehow.
I really think that Alfred and Sarah, there's a sweetness to their relationship. It's mostly from Alfred's end. He's hopelessly in love and she's somewhat indifferent. I don't know. And so in this little scene, she's in the bath and she's not fully turned, and they share a kiss, and then he's trying to convince her to leave, and she's like, oh, there's this big ball tonight, and look, they gave me all these clothes, and they said my dad's going to come, and all this sort of stuff. She's she's captive there. And then he turns as she's getting out of the bath, and then he turns around again, and she disappears. And so he goes to she doesn't disappear, he just can't find her. And then he goes to get the professor out, and then drops the bag with all their stakes and all the vampire gear, all their weapons, and it just tumbles down the mountain. Yeah. So they don't have any stakes or any weapons at this point. And so then they go back inside, and Alfred's looking for Sarah, but instead he finds Herbert getting ready for his bath wearing just a nightshirt. Yeah. And then we have a great scene where Herbert is flirting with Albert or Alfred. I keep calling him, am I calling him Albert? It's Alfred.
Alfred, yeah. That's Polanski's character, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, and Alfred has this little book on this. What is this like 19th century how to pick up chicks book? I don't know. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
I don't know. And so he's like, oh, someone's little heart is fluttering or something. I don't know. It's a funny scene. And he's sitting on the bed with Herbert, and he notices that he is not casting a reflection.
Yeah, the typical vampire thing, which that was kind of interesting once he looks away at the mirror. Yeah.
And it's interesting because I guess vampires don't notice mirrors. And I never thought about that because vampires are probably not accustomed to even noticing that mirrors are in the room. When we pass mirrors, you can't help but look in one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we always stop and look at ourselves no matter what, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But
not so with vampires. So anyway, he grows some teeth and then goes to bite Alfred. And then Alfred just runs and he escapes the professor's room. And then, Herbert's chasing them both. And then they kind of hide from him. I just like that whole scene. I thought it was very cheeky, Jordan. It was a very cheeky scene.
It's a funny scene. It's a cute moment. Yeah, he tries to seduce Alfred in the most 1967 way possible, and since it's a family friendly movie,
in the most
I guess
1967 British vampire movie, horror movie way possible.
Like, may I kiss your neck? I mean, bite it. May I bite it properly?
It's a cute little scene. I thought it was. Anyway, so then they go back to the roof because they spend a lot of time on the roof in the snow because, Jordan, we got these sets. We paid for these sets. We better use them.
We better reuse them, or we better use them and reuse them. Damn it. It took Filmways a long time to get this money. We're not gonna waste this money.
It took us 2 weeks to build the fucking set. We're gonna fucking use it, you know? Fucking use the damn thing. I don't care. Write a scene with it back in the fucking castle roof. Anyway,
but oddly, like this is like this is where we're getting the last act of the movie, right? I mean,
we're almost to the end. I promise I'm getting there. And so,
and this is, I will say, this is where the movie at least picks up the pace a little bit more. A little bit more happens. A little bit more movement. I will give it the movie that much, you know.
You say that because I think this is the point where you woke up, Jordan. Jordan was aroused from his slumber in his big sleeping cap.
It took me 2 days to watch this movie, and it was in increments of two different, like it was a mini series kind of thing. Even though this movie is only like 94 minutes, maybe oddly, but with my busy schedule during the week, I'm sorry. Anyway.
Jordan's a busy man in his private life. He's got a lot going on, and he does.
I'm a busy man. I have various cryptocurrency investments with my uncle.
Well, I'm very sorry. That's the real horror story right there, Jordan. Recently,
we won't go into that.
Anyway, so then they go to and this is where and I'll give you that. This is where the movie picks up. I was with this movie all along, but I can see how this is where it picks up a little bit in the third act here. And then...
Oh, excuse me. What? Sorry.
So they're on the roof again.
Oh, there's a drink in front of me. I forgot.
They're on the roof again, Alfred and the professor, and they see what, Jordan? They look down at the graveyard, and what do they see?
Oh, it's just all those... Is it all those people coming out of those graves, basically? Yes?
Yeah. Vampires coming out of these...
All those vampire people coming out of those graves, Anthony, just all of them. I'm sorry. I sound like my neighbor in Texas now. Are those vampire people coming out of those graves, Anthony? Do you see that? Come here, look at that window, Anthony.
Well, I'll be darned.
I'll be darned. Look like a lot of European vampires coming out of those graves over there. Come look out the window. Come here, look at that.
I told Heloise, I said, I don't trust them graves next door.
I don't trust those people that moved in next door. They look like a bunch of Euro trash. I'm just saying. They just look like a bunch of hippies from Europe or something.
A lot of frills and a lot of velvet jackets.
Yeah, I mean, what are they? A lot of frilly collars. What do they read too much Anne Rice or something? Jeez.
Up all night. I don't know what's going on there. I just,
look like they came out of a graveyard in Louisiana or something. Jeez.
Well, anyways, they go. Those are actually, vampires getting out of those crypts, out of the coffins there, and then the counts. There.
Wait, are you saying they hired real vampires in this movie, Anthony? I'm sorry, I don't mean to be so buzzed here, but yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a good diversity cast going on. I think they hired human actors, and they also, they got some real vampires in there for representation. They didn't want a vampire wash this movie. And I respect that.
I know there was a vampire union in Europe at this time, yes, and in England.
Oh, man. With all the Hammer movies?
I'm sorry, European Vampire Union, yes, is going on.
With Hammer cranking out so many films, there had to have been a vampire union.
Some of those vampires were real, yes.
Exactly.
In those Hammer movies.
So the local Vampire 401 was on this set, making sure everything was, authentic and respectful of vampires. And I appreciate that.
The Vampire Teamsters Union for the vampire actors, protecting them their rights.
I know, it's break time. No, all the vampires get a break. We get 4 breaks daily. Come on.
4 breaks. They need that blood, okay? How are they supposed to work without that blood?
We was promised blood on this film, right? We was promised blood for all the actors. This is going to be a problem. I'm going to go. I'm going to go. He goes full Christian Bale.
Yeah. Michael Caine fought for them at one point. He was like, They were promised a meat department down the street, and you don't even have the bloody meat department within a few yards. Now,
look here, even though I'm not in this movie, I'm just always hanging out on all movie sets. Michael Caine is always there. He has to check, am I in this movie?
Yes. Michael Caine is the president of the English Screen Actors Guild back then, and the English Vampires Guild.
Not in the 60s, man. Anyway. Anyway, so they're watching Alfred and the Professor watching, and I like this. It's funny. They're watching the vampires come out of these coffins. The Count is behind him. He says, "You shouldn't have come here." And then Alfred turns to the Professor. He doesn't realize the Count's behind him. He's like, "Well, then why did we come here?" And he says to the Professor, "It's like it's that kind of movie. It's that kind of fucking movie." And I think that's funny. Not everyone does. But
okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No.
Although when we get to this this Dance of the Dead, that I will say that is a pretty big spectacle.
That is pretty cool.
I will give it that.
And we're getting there in 2 seconds, because then it's a full revelation at this point. We know the Count is a vampire. The Count knows that they know he's a vampire. They know that he knows that they know he's a vampire. Everybody knows the Count's a vampire. And then he unveils his little scheme here, Jordan. He says, "Professor, you and I are going to have long nights discussing bats and science and things after you change." And then Alfred here, my son quite fancies him. Alfred will be a good companion for my son. And then after you attain spiritual enlightenment, then, it'll be this wonderful thing. And it's very interesting to see how they've been playing with vampire tropes until this point, and then they kind of create their own, because
true.
Then vampirism is introduced as sort of a next spiritual thing where you and it's kind of a good sell. He kind of makes a good sell. Like, look, I mean, you live forever and your body's invigorated. You have all this power and stuff. It's kind of like a Twilight movie before then. But
yeah, that's true.
Or any number of movies.
That's true. Yeah. I don't know, man. Once again, I just wish Polanski had just gone the full degree here and made it into a fucking horror film.
Hey, that's just not.
I get it. Yeah. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I get it at that point. I imagine there was so many damn Hammer films all the way from the early 60s up to this point where they all look the same after a while, probably. So this is probably a breath of fresh air where even it didn't matter what joke Polanski threw in here. It helped in any way, where people went, oh, thank God this isn't a Hammer film.
Jordan, seriously, would you rather watch this than some of those Hammer movies? Or some of those I really like, but they do.
I mean, would I watch this one compared to a Hammer film like The Creeping Flesh, which is, I'm going really, that's a deep cut, obscure reference here for anybody out there listening right now. Yes, definitely. I would watch this one over The Creeping Flesh again, probably, because that movie is about the dullest Hammer film I can think of off the top of my head. And I have not seen every Hammer film. I am not a Hammer filmologist.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than some of that shit. And there's some other shit that I really like. But
good point,
like
though,
series,
I guess,
and it'd be like multiple movies. And it would be Peter Cushing, and it'd be like Christopher Lee, and then it would be, I don't know. It just seemed like it was the same movie made over and over again, more or less.
With the glut of movies back then coming in, and everybody, I bet, probably saw this movie at the drive-in back then, mostly.
Yeah. Well, they wanted a good nap, then they probably drove out there anyway.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I just think that's an interesting idea. We've seen sympathetic vampires a lot since then, and I don't know if this was the first time that a film kind of took that spin on it, the vampire point of view. Because he's really he's not trying to convince them, he's telling them what's going to happen. And basically, he has this plan to take over the whole freaking world. He's going to take over the whole world by turning everybody into vampires. And that's always kind of a thing in vampire movies. But here it's like a plan.
That would become even more so popular later on, of course. Yeah, that was an underlying plot later on in the first Blade movie.
Yeah.
I know.
And I guess even the Blade comic, I think, comes after this. But the
Peopling the World, and they kind of suggest in an interview with the Vampire from 1994, even. Peopling the world with vampires, as she says, as little Claudia says.
My point is maybe this movie was a little influential. Maybe it's, and I haven't watched every vampire movie ever. But maybe it's introducing some unique ideas here, kind of early on.
Yeah, I mean, no joke. I'm sure it influenced even Taika Waititi when he did
What We Do in the Shadows.
What We Do in the Shadows years later.
Oh,
I'm sure it, and surely it had influence on that even. I mean, and Taika Waititi's a genius in my opinion. No joke.
Yeah, he's a triple threat. I mean, he does it all.
Yeah. I mean, if Taika Waititi did this nowadays, I can only imagine, if Taika Waititi remade Fearless Vampire Killers, he might almost redo it even better. I'm saying it. I'm just saying. Yeah, I'm saying it.
I mean, he's already mined that area, that topic.
Yeah.
I don't know what more he could, but you're right. If he got a wild hair and hat and someone held a gun to his head and said, you have to.
Probably did it better already, with What We Do in the Shadows, honestly. He probably did it better already there.
But, yeah, as far as funny vampire stuff, I don't know. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. But I had to mention Taika Waititi. It's good for our algorithms as well.
You and your algorithms.
For this podcast.
You and your algorithms. But anyway, so there's a worldwide plot to take over the world with vampires, and these two idiots have to stop it. Is the point?
Yes.
And
these bumbling idiots, yes.
So this is pretty interesting, but the Count locks them outside on this battlement, and then there's an old cannon there, and it's kind of like a steampunk MacGyver moment where MacGyver Kids was a guy from back in the 80s who had a TV show who would just
or a MacGruber moment. I was going to say
same as MacGruber, who would just like find stuff and do things. Yeah.
Parody of MacGyver, but yeah, MacGyver.
McGowran. I mean, that's the guy who played, a Bronzius.
You're right, though, Anthony. I'm sorry. I didn't make this is a total MacGyver moment. MacGyver was a guy back in the 80s that would solve moments at the top of the hat.
Yeah, he would just kind of like use stuff that's lying around and like, fix something or blow something up. That's the whole point.
He could take a paper clip and make an old tank work with it, or he could start an old tank with a paper clip.
But here, what do they do, Jordan? They do that sort of thing. What do they do?
They shoot a cannonball off and they use a paper clip. No, I'm sorry. They don't do that.
No, but they do they get the cannon. And Professor Bronzius, who you think is an idiot in this whole movie, sometimes.
He's like, oh, we have a lamp next to me and we have but it's like almost everything is ready to go with this cannonball anyway.
There's cannons.
The balls are stacked next to it. They just re-aim it the other way at the door that's locked, that the Count locked them out of or whatever. Yeah. And then
and I don't know if this physics really works, but it's fun and interesting to think about. And I'd love to see like that old Mythbusters show do this. But anyway, it's like, can you pack a cannon full of snow and heat it up and then block it up so that it shoots a cannonball? I mean, probably with enough heat.
Okay. Yeah. Now that you're talking about, you're bringing up that part. Yeah. The packing it with snow. The scarf thing I didn't understand because he puts his scarf in there for
to keep the steam from escaping even around the cannonball. Is that what that was?
Okay, all right. I mean, it all looked like it made sense.
And for a second, it's a movie. Honestly, all it has to do is kind of make sense. And this movie, ladies and gentlemen, kind of makes sense.
Things were at least happening in that scene, I will say.
Jordan woke up for a minute and he was like, oh, a scene where something's happening.
Oh, wait. Oh, something's happening. Oh. They're pointing the cannonball at the door. When we get to the roof. Oh yeah, they're on the roof again. Okay. What movie we're watching? Blade. Oh.
Anyway, as they're doing that, we cut to the Count who's speaking to the other vampires who are assembled, and he's like, and I love this scene. He holds up and he makes the devil sign with his hand. He said, "With Lucifer's aid, we will." Be able to take over the world. We have Sarah, and he shows him Sarah, and he's like, and I've been busy this past year, everybody. It's been a whole year since we gathered and did our little thing. And we've got like 4 or 5 new vampires. Jordan, really in a year, if you were really trying to make people vampires, you think like 3 or 4 in a year, is that something to brag about?
No, because I agree with you. Because if you're a vampire, a year is like, a month almost at that point in time. I read a scientific article on this, actually, Anthony, in Omni magazine, where they talked about if you were immortal for 200 years, what it'd be like. And just imagine how fast everything seems as you get older as an adult, how everything just seems to zip by you. Just imagine getting to that point in time where it's 200 years and imagine how things go by. So no, Anthony, you bring up a good point there about,
Yeah, maybe you're making me rethink that. Yeah. If a year's not that long, but really,
no, you're right, because it's like, 3 in a year. Every other vampire in there is probably going like 3 in a year. Is he bragging about 3 in a year?
Well, I mean, and think about it. Like, really, these vampires have all happened in the last 24 hours. Like 24
I did
hours.
50.
The count's
50 the other night in an alleyway.
The count has been procrastinating, is what I'm saying.
Exactly. No, you bring up an excellent point there, Anthony. I'm actually backing you up on
the
that.
dance is tomorrow, and I don't have any vampires. Oh shit.
Since you normally explain the logic, I was doing you for it on that one, actually.
Why, thank you. We agree on something. If not the fact that this movie is funny, Jordan, we at least agree on the fact that the count is lazy.
And it's too long. I'm saying it. I'm sorry. Anyway, back to the movie.
Oh, so anyway, the vampires start to dance at that point, and so
yeah. No, this is an interesting sequence. This is where the movie finally starts to go and move and become a movie.
It's curious. It's very interesting because, like, okay, they're dancing this old minuet, and here's the thing: this movie happened. These vampires are all dressed maybe 100, I don't know fashion, 100, 200 years before the time, presuming this the 1800s, dressed like the 1700s because they have all that, I don't know. Anyway, but they're dressed from different times. And so the vampires are all like, rotten, which is weird. I thought vampires were supposed to have like, eternal youth, but I don't know. I don't know.
But this is a different kind of vampire, as you said earlier. I mean, I don't. But and then maybe they were sleeping longer than normal. Maybe they're sleeping an extra, 10 years or 20 years.
Or maybe they haven't had any blood yet. I don't know. Something. This movie establishes a vampire logic and then really doesn't follow up on it. But I don't really care.
But this sequence, I looked it up. The sequence, no joke, it's called the Dance of the Dead sequence. It's referred to as the Dance of the Dead sequence by Polanski and production and all that.
It's a wonderful scene. And basically they're all dancing this minuet. And it's really cool. It's choreographed. They're all in these costumes. And
oh, yeah. It looks creepy, too, on top of that. It looks like a bizarre nightmare at the same time. That's the bizarre thing. Like, it has bizarre nightmare kind of imagery going on with it, It's not a party you'd want to walk into in a dream. Technically,
no, it is like a nightmare because
I'm just saying if you fall asleep at night and your dream began, you walked into this Dance of the Dead party into this movie. No, it's not it's still, even though this movie's supposed to be funny, it's not the party you'd want to walk into in your deep late night sedated dream after you dropped a bunch of Ambien after your friend's birthday party and your friend was about to get mad at you over something. And, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go on about it. Anyway, I'm going deep here. I'm sorry.
You'd be texting your friend like, OMG, this party is full of dead vampires. Can somebody come pick me up?
Please come pick me up. Yeah.
And then, so Alfred and the professor have to go into this ball with the vampires to save Sarah. And they're dancing with these vampires, and I really like it. To me, it's so funny. So they're in these costumes, these big wigs. Alfred finds Sarah, and he's like finding every opportunity as the dance kind of ebbs and flows to move toward her. Mm-hmm. And he grabs her hand, and when he can get to her, he's like, "It is I. Life has meaning once more. We will save you, or we're here to save you." And I was like, that's so funny. And then the professor is like, none of the other vampires seem to notice these conversations, but he's like, "We can heal you with the transfusion. It'll just take a couple days." Brontes, the professor, tells Alfred, he's like, "Okay, after this next change here, let's all run for the door." So we got a plan, everybody. And instead, they all dance, and then there's a point to where they're all trotting forward, Sarah, Alfred, and the professor, and they trot up to a mirror. Right, Jordan?
Yeah.
And what do they see?
Oh, I forgot. What do they see in the mirror? It's like nobody's there, or
they see themselves, but they don't see the other 100 people in the room.
Yeah, which is, I guess, the first time once again you see this in a movie, other than the original Todd Browning Dracula movie, at least, or a few maybe, where you don't see the reflection once again. But it happens a bunch of times in this movie.
But it's a wonderful effect. It's literally you see the crowd of people, and you see them dancing, and you see the mirror, a big mirror, and you see the reflection, and you don't see anyone else around them. And it's a wonderful practical effect. It's totally believable.
This is why, once again, I just wish Polanski had done this as a fucking horror film. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost like what happened with Dark Star becoming Alien later on, or begetting Alien later on with the creators. You know, like you wonder, like, what if Polanski had remade this movie later on, just like Dan O'Bannon had remade Alien later on, you know, from Dark Star? You kind of wonder what would have happened. Like, my God, it would have been a hell of an epic vampire film, probably. Maybe that's my problem with this movie as well. I just look at it now and be like, man, I know that's really overly critical, but goddamn, it could have been fucking bloody epic if Polanski had made a serious fucking vampire movie.
So
I don't know. And at that point, that would have been dated, I'm sure.
Yeah, but you're thinking if Polanski was 20 years in the future and not in England, he could have made a better vampire movie? Is that what you're saying?
No, my God, I don't know. I wonder if he had if he had taken what Hammer did and went like, you know what, I'm going to go even further. What if he had been Tobe Hooper at that time doing Texas Chainsaw Massacre, is what I'm saying.
And just made it like
how much more interesting
vampire movie,
an even bloodier vampire film, going above Herschel Gordon Lewis even.
Oh my God. Okay, well, put a pin in that. We'll come back to that literally 1 minute because I just want to wrap up the movie. We're at the end.
Okay. Sorry, maybe I'm rambling a bit. Yes.
No, you're on point. You're good. But anyway, I just love that mirror scene. That is fantastic. I thought the effect was wonderful, and apparently it was done with some extras and some.
And a lot of this sequence looks like it's right out of a Mario Bava film from that period. Even, you know, it looks like the best thing Mario Bava could have even.
Yeah,
like, it's almost it's on par with Mario Bava.
Not as bloody. Yeah.
But as far as the epic level that Mario Bava would get sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
Visual he would get anyway, you know.
Well, I mean, a lot of camera tricks, and it is one of those, you know, you can do a lot with practical effects and miniatures and rear projection and things like that. And
true. I
mean, I think the Europeans were onto something. They had a lot of real fun practical tricks that they would do, and this is no exception to that.
True.
So anyway, the vampires stop dancing. They see them obviously not reflected in the mirrors, and they give chase. And then Professor and Alfred make a cross with these swords, and the vampires are all scared of that. And then so they finally run down. They get a horse and a sled, and then they Sarah's with them, and then they escape. Jordan, yay! Movie over. They escape.
Is it over though? No, they escape.
But then what happens?
Oh, this moment where they're in the back of the professor's driving the sled. The horse and the sleigh or whatever you call it. What is it? Anyway, and Alfred is in the back with what's her face, Sharon Tate's character. But yeah, it's Polanski and Tate in the back, and yeah, he thinks everything's okay, but he feels her hand, and he says, Your hand is cold. I don't remember your hand being so cold. Oh no, your hand is cold. You're dead. But he thinks she's dead, but then he realizes, oh no, she's dead. She's undead, of course. And then suddenly she slowly opens her mouth and her teeth. She reveals her fangs and she bites him. And it's as the professor's still riding the sled. And then oddly, there's a narrator that gives us the explanation at the end that says, he thought that he had carried the nightmare away, something like that, and but he didn't, something like that. But
yeah. It's just like the irony that Professor Bronte
and I've described that in the worst way possible. I apologize, folks, for you out there. Anyway.
Oh no, that was fine. That was exactly right. And then the narrator explains, and I don't remember it exactly, but he's like, the irony that Professor Brontius was trying to stop this evil and is now responsible for spreading it across the world. So that
that's the thing too, because the end of the movie implies more of a horror film again. That's my problem. This movie doesn't know what it is, in my opinion. I'm gonna say it. I know it's got a 70% and 88% on Rotten Tomatoes. Although it wasn't critically acclaimed when it came out, I did look it up. Critics, because they got the American version, they thought it was just, they were confused. A lot of critics were confused back then. I'm sorry. Anyway.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what you might. Well, maybe you like the American version. It was 108 minutes. Maybe that's more your. Maybe they cut out some of the slowness, and so these scenes do drag on. They're very deliberate scenes, and yeah, they could tighten them up.
I don't mean to sound like a kid from the YouTube generation. I'm sorry, but
this movie doesn't have any explosions in it. I like Marvel movies.
I want this movie to rain chocolate at some point.
It was raining jokes. You just, you were just taking a nap.
Chocolate
and didn't notice,
rain.
Jordan.
Anyway, I mean, I'm
chocolate rain. Jordan's old school YouTube references.
Boy, yeah. I went back further with that YouTube reference.
Froggy Fresh.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying, but I don't know.
No, but I mean, you said this movie doesn't know what it wants to be. I think Polanski wants us to be a very dry, witty, send-up parody of Hammer horror films. I think you're right. I think that's what it is. But what do you?
I think it was his fan film of a. I think it was his fan film of a Hammer horror film, possibly Universal horror film as well.
I mean, does the movie not know what it wants to be, or do you want it to be something else? It sounds like you want it to be a bloody horror movie.
I don't think the satiristic tone works for it. I really don't. It doesn't work here. It's like if you, to me, I'm going to say it. It's like if you threw jokes in the middle of Rosemary's Baby, another Polanski film. Okay. That movie hardly has any humor at all. Think about how humorless that movie is.
It could have used a few jokes if you asked.
It could have used some, but if you threw some in there, like, okay, suddenly
Rosemary just had a baby.
Wacky okay, remember the scene where she's cooking the steak, okay, and it just goes on forever. Remember that scene in the movie? I don't know if you remember Rosemary's Baby, folks out there. Let's say that Roman Polanski decided to throw a joke in there, okay? So she's cooking the steak. It takes forever. There's the steak cooking. Okay. Suddenly the neighbor knocks. Hey, Rosemary. What's wrong? You're not grilling that thing? Boy, you're kind of overdoing it there, aren't you? Oh, it's okay. I've done this before. I'm just really hungry right now. The baby makes me pregnant. I mean, the baby makes me, the baby makes my pregnant ass hungry is what I was going to say. And then there's your joke. I don't know. And then the neighbor leaves and suddenly there's this odd joke thrown in the middle of Rosemary's Baby. That's the problem I have with this movie, because Polanski doesn't know how to do humor with his horror and suspense, in my opinion.
But I was about to say, this has been the Multi-Meal Radio Hour with Jordan doing Rosemary's Baby.
Sorry.
But I
I'm
mean,
sorry for you people out there in podcast land if I overdo it here. I'm sorry. I didn't write that joke ahead of time, to my credit either. I'll be honest, actually.
No, I love the Foley work. I'm a fan. So anyway, I think maybe you don't get his humor. You just don't get it, Jordan. Maybe that's the problem. You just don't get it. You just don't get it. It's too smart for you. Ooh. No, I
apparently, Jordan, you did not understand the Fearless Vampire Killers. Yeah. That was my pretentious man.
Anyway, no, I mean, it's okay to not think something's funny and not get. I was talking about Hail Caesar. I didn't get that movie. I wanted my money back, and I didn't pay anything.
You didn't get Hail Caesar, that Coen Brothers movie? I think that was genius, man. What the hell, man? No, I'm sorry, I haven't seen it yet. Actually, I still need to watch that movie. I'm just joking out there.
No, you don't. If you don't like the Fearless Vampire Killers,
I had that on my list to watch of movies. I'm
watch another Coen Brothers movie, but it's very subjective.
Yes, that's true.
Well, you can scratch off Fearless Vampire Killers now.
I came into this movie with an open mind. Even you were wanting to watch this movie for a long time for this podcast. You kept putting it out there at me, and it's not that I was opposed to it. If you'd said Frantic even with Harrison Ford, I'd been like, well, that movie, and we can make some jokes there too. Yeah, we can. Yeah, Anthony, we can. I don't know why I'm doing this voice now. Anyway.
Well, I apologize, Jordan, because I thought, look, Roman Polanski. I thought, horror, Halloween time. Would be a fun thing to watch. I thought.
Well, you thought wrong, Anthony. I'm kidding. I'm sorry.
No. No, you're okay. It's subjective. That's the thing is I don't care if people like movies or not. It's like, hey, I love this movie. They're like, not for me. Cool.
I mean, yes. Putting all the controversy aside, all the Sharon Tate controversy aside, all the Roman Polanski slept with the underage kid thing aside. Yeah. Anyway, but all that aside, I mean, as a filmmaker, just judging him as a filmmaker, I mean, yeah,
he's a good filmmaker. In my opinion.
On this one, yeah, there's certain movies by his I like the movie Frantic he made. Chinatown, Chinatown, I think is overrated. I'm going to say overrated. I think Chinatown's overrated. You know,
Tenet is good. Rosemary's Baby, a little overrated, but still good movie.
The Tenet, I need to watch. I heard the Tenet is genius.
We should have reviewed that one. I apologize. You would have liked the Tenet a lot more. I mean, it has a very.
I saw an old 1976 article where they were just raving about it compared to all these other movies.
It's good. It's really good. I saw it once and I loved it. But anyway, okay. Well, I apologize again for this film. I guess it's just not fun. The biggest crime, I guess, of any comedy is that it's not funny. And for Jordan, this isn't. You wanted a horror movie, and it didn't. Roman Polanski did not deliver that for you.
I wasn't laughing. I'm sorry. I know this movie's supposed to be funny as all get out, but I wasn't laughing. I don't know.
It's
maybe I don't get this movie's European sensibility. I don't know.
It's not supposed to be funny as all get out. It's supposed to be funny in the sense that you're sipping your tea and then you're like, oh dear. And
is this movie, like Billy Crystal said, funny? Is it funny or is it fun? It's not fun and it's not funny. I don't know. What side of the Billy Crystal funny or fun coin is this, Anthony? I wonder. That's all I wonder.
Billy Crystal funny or fun scale, Howard. Anyway, I will.
Yes, I got that from Howard Stern. Yes,
I will say that I did like, and I'm not even going to try to say this dude's name, but I will try the Krzysztof Komeda score. You know that dude? He did the Rosemary's Baby score, which is fun. Great score. And a couple other movies. I like the music. The ooh and the minuet. I love the music. I thought it was a lot of fun. But going into I couldn't find any numbers on this movie as far as really the budget or how much it made. Because it's an international film. So all I can say is I think it maybe unsubstantiated cost about $2 million. That sounds like a lot, and I don't know if that's in American dollars or what. I don't trust that number at all, and I don't know what it made. But Jordan, I do know that it, like I said, it got Robert Evans' attention, or it made enough that Roman Polanski could go on and have a film career in Hollywood. It must have been some sort of success, even with the chopped down American version, with the awful animation.
We've mentioned Robert Evans' name twice already, and for you out there that don't know Robert Evans' name, just watch The Offer on Paramount Plus.
Matthew, why are you plugging Paramount Plus over here? Watch the kid stays in the picture.
Free plug to Paramount Plus, who doesn't have enough money right now. Paramount Plus needs your money, folks.
There I was. The biggest director in Hollywood, or the biggest producer in Hollywood.
For any of you who are lesser age, watch Kid Stays in the Picture. For any of you who are even older, read the book Stays in the Picture. Yes.
Well, Jordan, I guess we've said a lot. And I have no doubt. I think I kind of get where you're coming. Your opinion on this film. I think you think it wasn't funny, or a good horror movie.
I didn't think it was funny like I should have thought it was. Maybe. Does that make... God, that came off wrong. To me, it looked more like a horror film, a really odd horror film.
It's a weird movie.
Because I don't have any there was no laugh track to guide me over this movie. And it's funny
Nobody slipped on a banana peel. I get it.
There was like no laugh track when he looks at the cleavage in there early on in the movie. Like,
well, it's a movie. There's rarely laugh tracks in movies, but I get where you're coming from. Or the music didn't go, weep, 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 or whatever the music does. I get it. So overall, what is your rating? What did you think, honestly?
God, it's weird, man. It's weird because you know what? As a horror film, I would like this movie. I seriously would because of the look. It's very atmospheric.
Yeah.
That's the thing about it. And I heard Polanski took it seriously. He didn't treat this like it was a parody. He took it seriously, like, which is, if you're going to do comedy, I agree. You treat it like you take it seriously. If you're going to write a script, even with jokes, you still take it seriously. But man, I wish he'd gone the horror route more. I'm sorry. I just wish he'd tried to be less funny and just go fucking straight horror with this shit. I think the jokes would have come along naturally with things. They would have just played into scenes and just because it tells a story of a journey interestingly, and the look is so proper for that. I mean, it looks like a gothic. It looks like a Hammer film. Really, it does. It looks like a fucking Hammer film. It's got that going for it. I love.
You
the
like
look
the
of this
characters?
Movie. No, I don't care. I don't care for them at all.
That's part of the problem. Yeah.
Other than I actually like Sharon Tate's character the most, and maybe that's just because I know who she is, and I'm looking for her there.
I think she's the most underdeveloped. I think she's just kind of the pretty face, sort of.
She is, though. She is totally underdeveloped. But do I care about the lead characters guiding us? No, they just seem nothing more than stupid ass guides to this world, basically. Polanski's character and McGowan's character, they're just kind of there as your guide. They just seem like their characters don't seem like anything at all other than paper cutout guides to guide you or mannequins to guide you. There's no depth in them or anything.
Yeah. Well, what do you, out of 10 or whatever, however you want to rate this, what kind of rating do you give this?
Out of 10 stakes to stab a vampire, to hammer into a vampire, I give this maybe. The pacing really bothered me too. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'll give pacing you that. Of this movie,
a little bit.
And you know what? That's maybe being harsh because the time period pacing like this, audiences had patience for, because this is back when audiences would still dress up to go to the movies, probably, and they would make time for shit.
And British audiences too. Because Jordan, remember, like we were talking about Hammer films, and like in a Hammer film or any like older British films, it's not the same sense of pacing, because like I always say that there's like some scene in like a science fiction or horror movie, and it's like, hello, oh, come on in, hello, Captain, come on in. Would you like to have a spot of tea? It's like, yes, I would. It's like, yes, strange goings on about all these murders and whatnot. Yes, quite. How do you take your tea, Captain? Well, I take it with two sugars, please. It's like, oh, right. And a bit of milk, because I picked up the habit in India. Oh, you're in India. Oh, yes, I was in India. Quite a few stories about that. Oh, then, oh, yes. We're out of sugar.
Oh, yes.
Mrs. Pennyworth, can we get some sugar?
Oh, it's the Captain. He's joining us.
And then Miss...
I heard there's strange goings on in the quarters next door. Is that true? Someone died. Yes, that is true.
And yeah, so it would go on, and there's like immense conversations in the middle of this that just hold up the action until something happens. That is the pacing that European or British audiences are used to, and American audiences, even at the time, were a lot more patient than today.
See, you and I just made fun of that quicker just now than Polanski did. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm just giving us credit now. I'm patting us on the back.
He does dwell on a scene. I'm not hating him for that, but yes, I can see where that comes. But the movie is not long.
You know what? Next time I watch this, I'll watch this movie again, and I will think of it only as a horror film, and I'll take more drugs before I watch it. And I mean, I will pop more marijuana edibles,
adrenochrome, heroin, cocaine.
I won't go that far. I'll take the legal stuff. I'll pop more marijuana edibles, and I'll smoke more marijuana stuff, and I'll drink more alcoholic beverages with it, and make a night of it. And then,
well, Jordan, you want this movie to be something it's not. You got to accept it for what it is. It wants to be a comedy more than a horror movie.
Right,
you want it to be a horror movie more than a comedy, and I'm sorry.
It's not fair.
What kind of rating do you give it? What was your rating again?
I'll give it 5 out of 10 vampire steaks.
Okay.
I'll be fair. I'll be fair for atmosphere, generous. For Douglas Slocum's beautiful cinematography, and because I love the look of the 2.35 widescreen scope format of the movie, and that's for the production design as well. And Sharon Tate
gets a 5 for production design.
And
part of the production design is Sharon Tate, arguably. But anyway.
I agree. Oh, yeah, I agree.
I think.
How about you, Anthony? What do you give this? Out of What is your rating? Is it the same as mine? 10 vampire steaks or
Well,
something different?
I loved this as a kid, and
I hope I wasn't a
I
buzzkill. My
no, I don't
reaction
care what
wasn't
you
a
think. I
buzzkill.
mean, you can like what you like and like what you, or
I
don't
don't
like what
judge
you don't like.
Anthony for liking this movie, folks out there.
As I softly judge him for liking this movie.
What the hell? He made me watch this movie. God damn it.
It's my bad, everybody. Don't tell the audience. You watch it. You watch it. You make up your own mind. Don't let Jordan sour you to this movie.
I'm sorry. I'm not trying to sour you. No, I'm not. I'm not trying to sour you.
Because I give it a solid 7. No. 7 out of 10, only because you've convinced me of a few things. It would be an 8, but yeah, you're right. The pacing is a little slow at times. I think most of the jokes land. They're really dry. They're very British. If you like a British type thing from the 60s, you're going to think this is fantastic. It's the best of all of that. Or one of them, although not like strictly a British film, but
well, it was, yeah. I mean, it was shot in Borehamwood Studios in England. I mean, the MGM Studios in England. I mean, so
I keep saying England.
I mean, it is partly a British production, though. I think, from what I understand,
it is. But
and
it's got
it's
like
Filmways. I think it is a
French, Polish director, American money involved, and I think I think it's funny. I think it's smart. I think it brings some really interesting ideas. I think it's kind of for its time a bit forward thinking. I think it's fun. Yeah, it's not a perfect film, but it's not a terrible movie. So make up your own minds. 7 out of 10. Uncomfortable moments in a vampire ball when everyone realizes you're not a vampire.
Yeah. There's going to be some scenes in the beginning that might creep you out a bit too, folks. I'm not going to lie.
I think it's a cute little movie. Anyway, Jordan, that has been a really in-depth discussion into the Fearless Vampire Killers, and somehow we did not talk about Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate for the most of this.
Yeah, somehow we left all that out. Everything out about Roman Polanski as well, and everything sinful that he's ever done.
Yeah, I was about to say, Jordan, next time you run into Roman Polanski, you can lodge your complaints about this film, but you probably won't be running into him unless you go to Europe. So
that's right. Ooh,
anyway, deep
too
cuts.
Soon.
Ooh.
Next time I'm in Switzerland and I run into Roman Polanski, I'll be like, "What the fuck, man? The Fearless Vampire Killers is so slow paced." No.
No shit.
Yeah,
what the
like
fuck, man, Fearless Vampire Killer. Yeah, you
that's gonna be the only thing. Yeah, exactly. No,
that'd be hilarious. 60 years later, after a movie comes out, you just yell at him about it. Yeah. Like what the?
Don't. I'm kidding, folks. If I ran into Roman Polanski in Switzerland, what the fuck? That'd be bizarre. It's fuck. I don't know what I would say. I don't know what I would do. Anyway,
you put down your cafe au lait. It's like, excuse me, darling, I have to go do something.
Yeah, exactly.
Roman Polanski. Anyway, all right, guys.
Bitch.
That has been
you son of a bitch, you bastard. No.
This has been our discussion about the Fearless Vampire Killers. Hope you've enjoyed it.
That's right.
If you enjoyed this at all, maybe you'll enjoy some of our other episodes or like this one. However that works on however you're listening to this. Yeah. So happy Halloween. If you're listening to this around Halloween time, or if you're not, it's Halloween for the duration of this podcast, hopefully.
Yes. And if you would like to learn more about Roman Polanski, you can read about him at your local library.
If you'd like to learn more about Roman Polanski, you could learn more about him at your local sheriff's office. No, I'm kidding. Los Angeles Sheriff's Office archives. But anyway, yeah, moral of the story is, not all movies are for all people. And also, don't let your teenage daughter go to Hollywood parties. That is, regardless of the right or wrong of what happens at those parties, just be careful, folks. Just be careful out there.
I was afraid to let my 8-year-old daughter wander into the living room when I was watching this movie, because anytime Polanski was on the screen. Oh, sorry. Anyway.
Oh, dude, not even in the same room as a Polanski movie. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I can't leave my daughter in the same room with a Polanski movie. Even. Jeez.
All right, guys. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate it, every last one of you, especially our new listeners. And maybe next time, Jordan, we will be watching some other movie that you like for a change. and maybe not a Roman Polanski.
What have
film.
I not liked? Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. Yeah. You're right. Yeah. Sure.
Next time
Okay.
you pick the movie, and I don't know. Sorry, my apologies again for this one, but I'm not apologizing for this movie. I'm apologizing to you personally because you didn't like it. But that's okay.
You know, I sat through Howling 3, even though it took me 2 days or 3 days. Well, it took me 3 days to sit through Howling 3. Yes. Anyway.
Yeah, that's crazy.
This movie, I fell asleep halfway through.
How on earth did you fall asleep in the middle of this movie? And Howling 3 was A-okay. It was like, Howling 3, great film. Fearless Vampire Killers. Yeah, I mean,
Howling 3, I didn't fall asleep halfway through. I just stopped halfway through. And then I went like, okay, I have till this other day to finish watching this movie. I'll come back to this movie. But it's intriguing enough to come back to. Anyway.
That's disturbing that Howling 3 was more intriguing than this film. But I stopped in the middle of Howling 3 and I was like reevaluating what I'm doing with my life.
Well, I did that too. It was a mixed bag of emotions. These last 2 movies, honestly.
Okay, we'll get back on track. We'll actually review
October Halloween season.
Fails all round. No, these have been fun movies to talk about, and next time we will have a movie maybe somebody's heard of.
Very seasonal. These movies we've talked about so far. Whether you listen to them or not in October, yes, folks. Just so you know out there, we had to watch these movies within October season, so it was very fitting at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you all for listening. We appreciate it, Jordan. This has been
The Robots Took My Podcast.
All trailers, clips, music, or any other copyrighted material are used sparingly, edited from their original forms, and used for the purposes of criticism, discussion, commentary, and education about these fine films.